All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Donavon Johnson. I'm an assistant professor here at Florida International University. I'm also the associate director at CERTA, which is the Center of Integrated Security, Privacy, and Trustworthy AI here at FIU. I also lead the AI and cyber policy vertical at the Jack D. Gordon Institute here at FIU as well. I'm joined by a panel more esteemed than myself to have a very fruitful discussion this afternoon about cybersecurity, emerging technologies, workforce development, broadly speaking across those three themes. I will give my panelists the opportunity to introduce themselves, starting with Helvi.
Good afternoon. My name is Helvetiella Longoria, and I'm the Chief Information Security Officer here at Florida International University. And I'm very honored to be here with all of you and looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you. Alexander Perez-Pons. I am a faculty member in electrical and computer engineering, specializing in cybersecurity, AI, and embedded devices.
Hi, my name is Archer Amon. I'm a student at Florida International University studying computer science, international relations, and political science, working as a researcher with the Jack D. Gordon Institute with DJ, and my specialty is in AI policy and regulation.
Great. So we'll jump right into it. Barbara has been keeping us abreast, and she tells me we only have 25 minutes. So we'll get the ship going, and we'll get it done in those 25 minutes. As we all know, we've heard from speakers prior to this panel, cybersecurity, emerging technologies, there has been a vast proliferation. There is no doubt about that. But are we prepared? Is the job market, is the workforce prepared to respond to the demand that cybersecurity has presented and the demands with which we are faced? One of the things that Alex is not aware of is that prior to this panel, Helvi and I met in secret and decided that all the tough questions will go to him. And so we'll start off with you, Alex. And I know you're doing a lot of work in the technical space, Alex. You're also a professor here at FIU, so you also have that experience coming from pedagogy. So I'd like to ask, as someone working on the technical front lines, how do you see technologies like quantum computing and other emerging technologies transforming the cybersecurity landscape? And what does this mean really for the type of skills that we'll need in the near future?
We know that these new technologies, quantum and AI, are impacting and will definitely impact cybersecurity. And it impacts it for both securing it and also be able to counter its security. If you look at, for example, quantum, when it becomes a post-quantum world, we're going to have a lot of our encryptions that we rely on so much are no longer be a viable alternative. But at the same time, the new quantum capabilities will give us a way of securing communications in a way that we haven't been able to. So it not only brings us some threats, but at the same time gives us some opportunities. And we see that with AI right now. We see in AI how AI is being used currently in many tools to be able to analyze and log files and look for patterns and any type of incidents that might not have been detected and can be quickly be identified. But at the same time, we know that AI can be used for a lot of nefarious reasons. And whether you're talking about voice cloning, a chat box that sounds like somebody, or we're talking about deep fakes, or what we're doing in my lab, where we're trying to actually use large language models to generate different variants of malware. So can we create all of these different malwares, and how readily available and easy it is to be able to do this? So what we were trying to evaluate is, can we generate malware, and how effective is that malware going to be to evade detection currently? And then can we use obfuscation methods to further enhance that ability? So is cybersecurity going to be affected? Absolutely, by these two technologies. And one of the things I want to mention is I think that as we move forward with cybersecurity, we're looking at skill sets. A lot of times, we spend a lot of time giving students the know-how about how to use this tool or how to use what this protocol is, but can they really use it for an effective objective or goal? So the future, and I'll talk a little bit about this later, is what are some of these workforce roles and how are we looking at skill sets that you have to have in the cybersecurity domain to be an effective employee moving forward in many different areas.
No, I'd like you to actually go there, take us there, Alex. From an academic perspective, what are some of those skill sets? And do you think that academic institutions are rising to the level?
I will tell you that the NSA has been sponsoring for a while now what are called centers of academic excellence. And these centers are geared toward research and for cybersecurity education. And it's very extensive to get these certifications and designations that then you can, when your students graduate, they can get a certificate saying you have that capabilities. Now they're segueing into building skill sets. So they're looking at the NICE framework and the DCWF, which is the Department of Defense Cyber Workforce Framework, and looking at what are the job roles defined in those frameworks, what skills are necessary, and then working back and making sure the students are getting those capabilities when they graduate. Because at the end of the day, you can know a lot, but can you use it for some effective cyber solutions?
Thank you.
And are we doing a good job? I went to a presentation and the NSA was speaking, and right now things are a little difficult because of the whole government executive orders that are keeping everything at a stay. But there's two things that are definitely going to be funded, and we're going to see great growth. It's going to be AI and cybersecurity. And they go hand in hand. AI needs cybersecurity, cybersecurity needs AI. So many of our students that are graduating from the engineering department are having both of those, whether at the undergraduate level or the graduate level. The combination of cyber and AI is really a definite must for skill sets.
Thank you so much, Alex. Helvi, I want to pitch over to you for a quick second. Alex has set this frame for us as to emerging tech, the skills, we need new skill sets. As a CISO, do you find that there are new skill sets that you are seeking out when you are onboarding, hiring, expanding your team, particularly skill sets that you're focusing on now that were not being focused on, let's say, 5 years ago? And if so, what are those skills?
I think it's a mix and a combination. The foundation has to be there, right? Talk a lot about machine learning, AI. Obviously, we're cloud initiatives and native cloud security, but you still need the foundation core skills that we've had and we've needed for the last 10, 15 years, right? Those skills are never going to go away because you just built on top of that. The threat actors are getting smarter, so we have to pivot and we have to learn new techniques to defend. But at the end of the day, the skill sets, you have to be curious, you have to dig deeper, and you have to be one step ahead of the attacker to make sure that you can keep up. Cloud security, DevOps, if you're looking, for example, at that piece, you need programming languages, you still need a computer science, a network engineering background. Okay. So that's a solid foundation. If we keep talking about a broader aspect of cybersecurity, we also need a well-rounded person, right? You need to make sure they understand regulations. We're heavily regulated. We're constantly being hit up with new regulations and compliance efforts and things that we need to keep up with. That's also going to be key, is not only looking at the tech, it's very important. That's what's protecting and defending the systems and the attackers, but how are you keeping up with those regulations? Yeah. And your risk assessments and third-party risks, understanding your contracts, what are you getting in there? You have to be very well-rounded. Yeah,
I quite share the view that the foundational skills are very necessary. And I'd like to pick your brain on that point a bit. How do you respond to the view that with the advent of AI, for example, some of those foundational skills will become automated and will become replaced by AI automation, therefore making them not so much needed as part of training in an academic, whether formally or non-formally sense?
So in that sense, I think AI can help us address incidents faster, address potential risks faster. We have to leverage and we need to embrace it. But I do believe that our team members need to learn how to pick the best out of it, but not depend on it 100%. Because at the end of the day, the AI may detect something, but you still need that human element to say, assert, yes, it's an incident, no, it's not an incident, and dig a little bit deeper and evaluate what the AI is putting out based on the information that you know, because every environment is different. We have different peaks and troughs depending on the time of year here at the university, for example. So what may look like an incident at a financial institution may not be an incident for us. It just means that we're starting up the fall semester and you have 65,000 students coming back on campus. There has to be a human element to that, and we have to live in coherence with that.
I'm coming back to you on that point a little later on, but I'd like to jump over to Archer for a bit. Archer, we've heard from Alex that universities need to adjust. There are new skills that we need to learn, and we need to get there and get there pretty quickly. Do you think, from a student perspective, and as a future professional, definitely, do you think that traditional academic programs are preparing students for the job market of what is required and demanded?
Thank you so much for that question, DJ. I think that traditional academic programs like the ones offered at FIU and other universities, they do a good job of setting the stage for opportunities. If I'm a student where I'm interested in cybersecurity, I'm interested in learning about these new technologies, one thing I would say that the universities are doing is we're seeing all kinds of new courses, new certifications, LinkedIn badges, different events popping up, things that people can go to if they want to learn more about these technologies. I would say that we're not in a shortage of information. What we maybe are in a shortage of is a way to give the students a pathway through that information. With everything that's being said about things like AI and quantum computing, a lot of times we also see issues like misinformation coming up, and a lot of students might not be critically prepared to think through that. I also think that in terms of developing those foundational skills, we have to ask ourselves, what are the incentives that these students have? When a lot of classes are structured traditionally where students just need to do very basic assignments to get a grade without really motivating them to care about the material, it makes more sense that they're going to use AI, that they're not going to develop those foundational skills. So I think that to some extent education is a place where you get out of it what you put into it, and that students have different pathways that they can find when they are interested. The problem looking towards the future, I think, is that a lot of students are finding it hard to get interested and hard to find out why they should be interested, where the careers that they're seeing in front of them aren't necessarily matching the expectations of what they're asked to do in their classes. And as a result, that drives cheating pressure, that drives students to not want to focus on developing those foundational skills. I think that while we might be preparing individual students well, we're not creating a good, broader incentive for our workforce to develop the skills it needs.
Thank you so much for that, Archer. I have had the pleasure of working with across different units and departments and colleges and schools here at FIU to push that agenda of having a more cosmopolitan tech professional. We said a more well-rounded person. So my department is the Department of Public Policy and Administration, and we are, as well as through the Jack D. Gordon Institute, we're already thinking about and actively creating courses that reflect that overlap. Courses in cybersecurity strategy, leadership, and management, for example, a course that I teach, focusing on some of the management skills, some of the leadership skills, some of the strategy skills that one should have as a cybersecurity professional, most definitely, because there is a whole section of cybersecurity that is not technical, that has to do purely with people, that has to do purely with psychology, for example. I always say to people, for example, that when someone does spear phishing, for example, there's a large degree of that is understanding of the human mind and trying to understand what would prompt a human being to click on this phishing link or to respond in a certain way. And so I know that there are some things that we are doing here at FIU on that front. Alex, Helvi wants to say something.
I just wanted to say something. I think it's also our responsibility, everybody that's out in the audience, to help navigate and help these students that are interested and want to find out more information. We need to open our doors and provide mentorships. We need to provide internships, because we can only do so much at a higher education, right? We can teach you, you're in and out in 4 years, but what you take out of here, outside of your classes, we have to provide that opportunity, as Archer's saying, right? And that opportunity is our responsibility. In the roles that we play in cybersecurity is, what can we offer these students, and what can we offer so that they can actually see what it is to be in the front lines? What is it to be at a SOC? What is it to be working at some of these big companies that we have a lot of the vendors here today, right? So we have to show them so that there can be an interest, because some students need that motivation. Sitting in a classroom for a couple hours and throughout a semester, they'll just go through the classes and they'll put effort and they'll pass their classes. But at the end of the day, are they getting motivated? Are they seeing what it is that they're going to get when they come out of their degree? And I ask all of us here, open up and see what opportunities you can offer. Partner, computer science, engineering, they have great programs, and we have great students that can come and do internships. Now summer's coming up, right? So they can shadow your team members. They can listen to see what's going on. I think that's very important. To me, mentorship, providing internship, it is great.
I think that's a very powerful call, and I 100% support it, Helvi. Alex, I've mentioned some of the things from my perspective. We also work together on many things. Shed some more light for us on how FIU is responding to this in adapting different approaches to curriculum and incorporating at the real world level applied learning and all of that.
TJ, that I'm a technical guy. I don't
I
have
know.
any soft skills. But with that said, FIU has really embraced, and not even FIU, I would say the School of Engineering and Computing, AI. In fact, our dean, Dr. Tria, has made it an initiative that every engineering student graduating will be AI ready. So that means that they will either know how to use AI, how to incorporate it, because again, we're looking for domain experts, whether it's mechanical engineering, whether it's civil, whether it's biomedical. Data is available. How can you use that data in order to prosper within the specific discipline you're in?
Yeah.
So FIU has developed, and specifically the Engineering and Computing School, made AI definitely a must-have for students to graduate. With that said, we have new programs that really combine both cyber and AI, and I mentioned that a little bit before. We're launching a master's in the fall semester, which is a master's in applied AI and IoT, which what students are going to be dealing with is generative AI, how to take a large language model, download it, make it private, because a lot of times people talk about security and they talk about privacy. Can you get a model that already analyzes logs, for example, bring it down and use your own log data that you don't want to be out in the public domain, and then build your own private model and then build that kind of expertise.
Yeah.
So we want our students to be able to understand security and be able to also use AI for its benefits. Now, if you're looking for a traditional master's program, we are also launching we're refocusing our existing masters in network security now to be a master's in security with a track in cyber AI or AI cyber. And what does that mean? You take 7 courses, which are a mixed bag of cyber and AI, fundamental, critical skills to have, and then you can segue into either a more traditional cyber track or a more AI cyber track. Yeah. So I think we're doing a lot, and I know that computer science also has their data science degrees that are looking into this line of work. So I think as a whole, FIU and many institutions around the nation are looking at AI and how to morph it and how to combine it with cybersecurity. And in fact, I'll add one more thing. I mentioned before the NSA sponsoring the CAE, Centers of Academic Excellence. They're going to be rolling out within this year Centers of Academic Excellence in AI and cybersecurity. So it is going to be a highly sought after skill sets.
Certainly. And to add to that, as I was saying before, we're also doing a lot on the non-technical front. The Gordon Institute at the Department of Public Policy and Education, even in the Faculty of Law, focusing on what are those soft skills that we need to create an agenda. And in my course, I get students from engineering and from computer science who are interested in understanding how do I write a cyber policy, right? How do I structure a policy that around HR and cybersecurity in an organization, because I want to learn those soft skills, right? And we find that is happening. We also find I sit on dissertation committees for students in computer science and so forth who are studying things that touch upon the non-technical dimensions of cybersecurity that are very important. So towards Helvi's earlier point, even cross-faculty collaboration becomes very necessary as an academic and tertiary institution. But I'd like to go back to Archer quickly. Archer, you mentioned earlier some of the non-traditional learning pathways, badges and so forth. From a student perspective, what are your views on self-taught approaches towards learning cyber and developing skills in cyber education, AI, so forth?
Yeah, I think self-taught skills are definitely important, both as a way to build beyond the knowledge that you're learning in the classroom and apply it elsewhere, and then also for students who might not have the same academic opportunities. I think it's also important to recognize that, for example, self-taught certifications may hold a lot greater weight in other places, like where there's not as many different cybersecurity educational opportunities in different countries, for example. We even see problems where cybersecurity professionals abroad will have certain certifications, certain trainings, and then they'll come to the US. Those same skills won't technically transfer. So I think we see a lot of places where we need a good way to judge candidates' capacity outside of their formal training and certification. And I think that self-taught skills are important, but I also think that they should be driven with purpose. I think that a lot of times the basic introductory cyber computer science projects, they don't do a good job of getting students excited to learn something because they're not tailored directly to a real world problem. I think that there's a mix between taking on difficult problems and taking on the easier ones that give students more milestones to see themselves growing. But I do think that for self-taught skills and certifications, we need to stop seeing them as just a way to catch up to the people that already have the formal qualifications, and more as a way to create people's own projects, to have them leverage their own skills, advance their own change, right? I think on one hand, you can have a self-taught project that you do because you want to learn XYZ skill, you learn that skill, and then you can go and demonstrate it to a future employer. Or you can look around and start the other way. Not what's the first skill I should learn, but what's the problem that I want to solve. You look at a specific problem, whether that's one within your community, your organization, even a club that students are leading. They can apply basic cybersecurity technical principles to a lot of really in their own life situations. And I think that if they start by looking at the problems, thinking, what are the skills here that are necessary? That's where they'll find not just the self-taught skills that are being widely marketed as courses, certifications, et cetera, but the skills that are most necessary. Because I think that if students can walk in to an employment room and they can say not only, I'm certified in this and that, but they can say, I'm certified in this and I've used this certification to apply it practically to this area of my life, or I saw this problem in my community, in my own situations, and I applied it. I would say that not just skills, but projects are very important, particularly as AI is able to take on more and more. Oftentimes, the things that it doesn't do the best is a lot more decision-making, a lot more initiative, not just how do we make this, but what should be made in the first place. And so I think that students should be continually expanding their skills, but also thinking about their purpose and how those two things can align.
Brilliant. I hope to see how is it that an undergraduate student managed to find his way on a panel with the university CISO and two professors. Very brilliant perspective. Alex, you wanted to say?
I totally agree with him. I think that the projects have to be...
Of course you had to agree with him. It's a brilliant point. Of course you had to agree. It's a brilliant point.
No, I don't have to agree, but I will agree with what he said. You got to have the projects, and then the skill building will come from those projects. And I think that one without the other, it creates a vacuum that you can't fill. But one of the things I want to mention is in South Florida, we're really in an ecosystem here where cyber and AI is really, we're graduating students with those skill sets. And as Helmi mentioned, we really would like that collaboration with our local partners here to be able to give students the opportunities to be able to expand and grow and actually apply their skills in areas that they can see the benefit in the long term. So I completely agree with what you were saying.
Thank you.
Definitely. Helvi, I'd like your quick view on this. I see we're being given the signal to wrap up very soon. From your perspective as a CISO, these non-traditional pathways, how do you treat with them when you get a CV with someone with these non-traditional pathways? How do you weigh them as a CISO?
To me, it shows a little bit of incentive. It shows that there's an interest. This is going to fall off. It shows that there's an interest and that they have the motivation to do the self-taught process.
Okay.
So to me, that's important because you want independent thinkers, you want them to be critical thinkers, and you want them to solve problems. I mean, I tell my team, if there's a situation, don't come to me just with the problem, come with me with multiple solutions so that we can identify that. So the self-taught is a critical skill that I think is very beneficial to anybody coming into the workforce because, again, initiative, and it shows the motivation, right? A lot of the things that we learn in school, we come with very well foundation and well-rounded. However, everything is changing so fast, right? We need to be able to be independent thinkers and continuous learners in our profession because things are changing so rapidly. If you look at the last 5 years with the emerging technologies that have come through, our team members went to school already, they have their degrees, but they have to continuously learn, take on these projects, learn new skill sets, and continuously keep evolving, continuing to learn to be able to be efficient in their job roles.
Thank you so much. One final...
I just think at the end of the day, this is an area that you must be passionate about.
Yeah.
And you've got to be passionate about learning and continually improving your skill sets and growing in this area. So with what Helvi has mentioned, yes, all that is important, but if you don't have that passion for cyber, that's not your area.
Thank you so much. One final word from you, Archer.
Yeah, one final word I would say is Cyber is a multifaceted and multidisciplinary field for a reason. That means that we can't just be having these conversations with cybersecurity professionals. We can't just be having these conversations at cybersecurity conferences. I think that some of the best ways we can prepare our future for cybersecurity is to think about how we translate these conversations into classroom environments, into environments with the people in our own communities, into talking with people from other fields, whether that be law, politics in terms of the regulations that you mentioned, things like psychology in terms of consumer behavior and spams that's mentioned. I would say that a lot of fields that people don't expect have things that they could add to the cyber conversation. And when we're talking about building the cyber workforce, I think that the best way to do that is by bringing diverse people together.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I had the best opportunity of this panel. I got the photo up with all of these wonderful and brilliant speakers. It was a pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, for taking the time and sharing with us. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you.